Welcome to Inspiration and Transformation from the Banks of the Ganga with Sadhvi Bhagawati Saraswati, an American sannyasi living at the Parmarth Niketan ashram in Rishikesh, India. Sadhvi is president of the Divine Shakti Foundation, a charitable organization bringing education, vocational training, upliftment, and empowerment programs to women and children. Sadhvi is also Secretary General of the Global Interfaith Wash Alliance and Director of the world-famous International Yoga Festival. Join the musings of an American sannyasi as Sadhvi shares the wisdom and teachings of her guru, His Holiness Pujya Swami Chidanand Saraswatiji.
Welcome everyone to Inspiration and Transformation from the holy banks of the sacred Ganga River in the land of Rishikesh, India. The journey from lust to celibacy for tapping our mind power. So first of all, you said something very important that I want to make sure everyone heard. He began by saying he's a Guinness Book World Record holder for memorizing the entire Oxford Dictionary, including the page numbers. And that he practices celibacy because without that, he doesn't have the inner energy, the inner mind power to do this. And that now he's training others to be able to do that. So this is a lot of what our rishis and sages have said for thousands of years, which is that our internal ojas, that internal energy of the system, not just the physical body, but the energetic body. Every time we engage in sex, we're not just losing physical fluids of the body. We're actually also losing ojas. And so it weakens immune systems, but it also weakens mental power. Now, there's a couple of pieces about this though. First of all, lust doesn't exist only in our genitals. So it's not if I can just keep my genitals under control, then I'm going to be okay. It actually exists in the mind as well. I may be physically celibate. I may not be engaging in any sexual activity at all. But if my mind is constantly thinking, oh my God, I can't believe this. This is ridiculous. I want to have sex so badly. Oh my God, I bet that person would be really great to have sex with. Oh God, I wonder what it would be like with that person. Oh, those people, I think they just went in to have sex. Now, if we are constantly thinking about it, we're actually worse off than if we're doing it. Because it's occupying all of our minds, so our mind power, of course, is completely gone. And the mind uses ojas as well. And so whether we are memorizing a dictionary or thinking about sex, they're both utilizing ojas. So just keeping the body under control is not actually enough. And this is why in our Indian tradition, we speak about different phases of life, because it's really clear that not everyone at every phase of their life is meant to be celibate. It's wonderful that you are. Congratulations. Many of us take vows of celibacy at young ages. Take sannyas at young ages. I was only 29 when I took sannyas. But for a lot of people, that phase of life comes after the householder phase. That we first go through a whole phase of life called the Grihastha ashram phase. in which we are a householder and we have sexual relations, dharmic, monogamous, healthy sexual relations with our spouse. We end up with children. And after that, we start going into Vanprastha ashram phase and sannyasa ashram phase. So I mention that because you should not feel like somehow every one of you, at every phase of your life, needs to be celibate or you won't have your brain functioning. If you are not ready to be celibate, and the mind is not able to come under control, then you're actually worse off than if you simply engage in dharmic, monogamous sexual relationships with your spouse. Because typically, in most relationships, you're not having sex 30 times a day, every day, 365 days a year, right? But when you're not having sex and you're thinking about it 30 plus times a day, 7 days a week, 365 days a year. And all of that energy that is being wasted in the mind thinking about it is more harmful than an occasional dharmic coming together of a husband and wife, or whatever the two people may be, in love, in union, dedicating that to the divine. It's why we have the Kama Sutra, because it teaches us how to take that which is very natural in married relations and also make it spiritual. How to offer that to the divine in a way that isn't depleting us, but is actually enhancing us. So I think the path is fantastic. I think it's definitely the right path for some people. It's the right path for more people as you get older. But along the way, conserving your ojas is very important. And by the way, not only sex is not the only thing that depletes it. Either doing it or thinking about it. Anger depletes it. Unnecessary talk depletes it. Gossip, negativity. Lots and lots of things deplete our ojas. You ever find yourself in a conversation with someone where you haven't even stood up, you're just sitting down chatting, but suddenly you find yourself like, oh my God, I'm so drained from this conversation. And all you've done is been gossiping or talking negatively about other people. That drains our ojas. All of the vasanas, they drain ojas. Desires drain ojas. Sitting here all day long, whether it's sex I'm desiring or more money or the office of the person next to me. Why does that person have the office? That's not fair. I want that office. I should have that office. We're depleting our ojas with every one of those thoughts. I'm too good for this little cubicle. Why does that person get the big office? Don't they know I'm the one who does all the work around here? You're depleting your ojas. So it's beautiful what you're doing. And it's a beautiful message to people of protect your ojas. And celibacy is certainly a very, very powerful way to do it. But it's important just to remember that it's not necessarily the right path for all people at all times. And with people for whom it's not the right path at that time, to help them work with their path so that they can conserve as much of that energy in thought, in word, in action as possible. So, yeah, thank you so much for bringing up that beautiful topic, and congratulations.
Conscious media for conscious minds. Om Times. Host your show on IOM FM, the radio network of Om Times Media, one of the more recognized brand names in the conscious community, and is backed by the extensive marketing reach of Om Times. Hosting a show on IOM FM immediately connects you with our extensive dedicated community.
Hello, I'm Sandy Sedgbeer, host of Om Times Magazine's flagship radio show, What is Going Om. My passion is sifting through information, research, and innovations from new thought teachers, speakers, and researchers, pushing back the boundaries of what we know about life, energy, metaphysics, and the universe. I love shifting perceptions about who we are, why we're here, and how quickly impossible becomes normal when we open our minds, expand our awareness, and accept that the only limits that exist are those we place upon ourselves. So if you're the kind of forward-thinking, eager investigator of what lies beyond the current reality that most perceive, why not make a date to come play with me in the field of possibilities at 4 p.m. Pacific Time, 7 p.m. Eastern Time every Thursday, and together we can discover what's really going on.
If I could be you,
and you could be me,
for just 1 hour.
If you could find a way
to get inside
each other's mind,
walk a mile in my shoes.
Walk a mile in my shoes.
Walk a mile in my shoes.
We've all felt left out, and for some, that feeling lasts more than a moment. We can change that. Learn how at belongingbeginswithus.org. Brought to you by the Ad Council.
Walk a mile in my shoes.
Welcome back to Inspiration and Transformation. I'm so glad to have you all back here with me. Tongue management. Today in Aarti, Puja Swamiji gave us a 3-point mantra for a happy life, happy relationships, happy family, tongue management, thought management, time management. So you've asked tongue management. As far as the speech part, because tongue management also, of course, means what we eat, what we take in. But the speech part, in the Bhagavad Gita, Bhagavan Krishna gives us the perfect answer. He says, tapas of speech, the right speech, is that which is true and kind and beneficial. It must actually fulfill all 3 criteria in order to be spoken. So do you hold back? You hold back only if that which you're going to say, while it may be true, is neither kind nor beneficial. You're walking out of the house to go to a party. Person with you is wearing something. She says, "Does this dress make me look fat?" Now, maybe she is fat, and especially maybe she's recently gained a lot of weight. Well, no dress can hide that. Now, what are you going to achieve on the way to an event by saying, "Oh yeah, it makes you look fat"? It's neither kind nor beneficial. But on the other hand, you also can't say, "Oh no, you look like a ravishing, runway model," because she knows it's not true. So you find a way. You find a way to say that which is true in a way that is both kind and beneficial. And there are some things that are just better not spoken. I'll give you a personal experience of this, personal story. When I was my senior year in high school, so I was 17, And I had always been someone in the West, when we are committed, I mean, I was not spiritual, but I considered myself deeply ethical and really rooted in values, and truth was one of them. I mean, I was a hardcore vegan and, organic and fair trade at that age. And truth for me was really important. Truth at all costs, like, I'm not going to lie to you. I'm not going to hold back the truth. I don't want you to do it with me. Truth will conquer everything. So my boyfriend, who was my first love, who at the time I thought we were soulmates, we were going to be together forever. Being in love at 17 is something very precious and sweet. And he was a year older. And so we had been together since my junior year, since I was 15 or 16. My senior year, he went off to college in Northern California, quite far away. So my dad, who's a divorce attorney, and I are having dinner one night. And he says to me, so what are you and Eric going to do now that he's going off to college? And I said, oh, we're going to have an open relationship. And my dad says, that sounds very interesting. Tell me about it. Anybody, by the way, who's a parent of a teenager, take lessons from my dad. He gets gold stars all around. So he says, that sounds very interesting. Why don't you tell me about that? And I said, well, it means that we will date other people, because of course we're so far away, but we will be totally honest with each other about it. We'll tell each other everything. And we will stay together forever, because we are soulmates. So my dad doesn't say, what, are you nuts? He says, so let me get this straight. You're going to date other people, tell each other about it, and stay together forever. And I said, well, yes, of course. And he says, that sounds very interesting. I look forward to hearing how that works out for you. Now, I share that story because that is the far end, the fallacy end of truth at all costs. There is some truth that is just neither kind nor beneficial. I had not yet learned that. When you have something to say, ask yourself, is it true? Because of course, if it isn't true, then absolutely you shouldn't say it. But is it also kind and beneficial? And that doesn't necessarily, by the way, mean in the moment to the ego of that person. We are not here to ensure that people around us do not have to go through their karmic journey. We're not here to ensure that people around us have their egos padded and all of their agendas fulfilled. But we're certainly here not to harm. And sometimes it becomes difficult because sometimes someone's ego or agenda is so wrapped up in untruth that it's very hard to know what to do. And in those cases, I would say speak the truth. Because even though it may be difficult for them in the moment, ultimately in the long run, in the service of their growing and deepening and unfolding, it actually is kind and beneficial. Doesn't mean they're going to necessarily enjoy it in the moment. But in the bigger picture of truth and dharma, it actually is kind and beneficial. And there are times that saying the truth is very difficult. And yet you know it is the kindest thing. Not necessarily in the moment, but in the bigger picture. But it's really critical to get your own ego out of the way there. Because our own ego loves to say things like, well, but it's true. That's why I said it. Sorry if you're hurt, but it was true. Telling someone what you think of them isn't necessarily kind or beneficial in the short run or the long run, unless they can hear it. And this is another important part about honesty. If we know that someone can't hear it, it isn't necessarily honest to speak it. I'll give you another personal example about this. When I first moved to India, I moved here because of God, because I had had an extraordinary spiritual experience of the divine standing on the banks of Ganga. And because when I met Puja Swamiji and came into the presence of a guru, I felt the presence of God. Now, I come from a Reformed Jewish community. We were not religious. We were not spiritual, but not religious. Nobody ever talked about God other than, oh my God, or, in other forms of profanity. What I found was when I tried to explain to my parents why I wanted to live in India, and I would talk about God, what they would hear was, she's been brainwashed. She's been kidnapped. She's joined a cult. Something bad has happened to her. And so I'm talking about the most ecstatic spiritual experiences. And what they're hearing is trouble, brainwashing, problem. If you call my highest truth, God, A, and we say every time I speak A, my parents hear C, then speaking A is no longer truth. If I know that when I say A, they hear C, and C is clearly not true, I had not been brainwashed, I had not joined a cult, I had not been kidnapped, I had had a spiritual experience, then for me to speak it is untruth. But what I discovered was there was a B, and B was the children and the women and the schools that we were building and the programs for the women we were doing. And that was also true for me. I was very excited and touched and inspired to serve and to do the work. It wasn't the main reason. I could have done that work in California. But it was also a very deep and true reason. And when I spoke it, my parents could hear it. And so what I realized was that speaking B was actually more honest than speaking A. Because I spoke A, they heard C. I spoke B, they could hear B. And so B had to become my truth in the communication based on what they could hear. So you've got to ask yourself when you're speaking your truth, is somebody actually able to hear that? Because if they're not, and they hear something different, if you say to somebody, they ask you about the dress, do I look fat? And you say, well, you may have gained a few pounds. And what they hear is, you don't love me anymore. I'm ugly. I'm a worthless human being. then that's not truth. And even though it's true, you better find a different way of communicating that's more in alignment with what they can hear. And that's a really great and also really beautiful challenge that we have, to start looking at layers of truth and how we communicate them.
The Real Conscious Connection. Om Times Radio. IOM FM. Om Times Magazine is one of the leading online content providers of positivity, wellness, and personal empowerment. A philanthropic organization, their net proceeds are funneled to support worldwide charity initiatives via Humanity Healing International. Through their commitment to creating community and providing conscious content, they aspire to uplift humanity on a global scale. Om Times, co-creating a more conscious lifestyle.
More than 24 million Americans have an autoimmune disorder, and that number continues to grow. I'm Sharon Saylor, and I'm one of those 24 million. To put that number in perspective, cancer affects about 9 million and heart disease up to 22 million. That's why I've brought together top experts and those thriving regardless of their diagnosis to bring you the latest, most up-to-date information. Join me, Sharon Saylor, Friday night, 7 p.m. Eastern, for the Autoimmune Hour on Life Interrupted Radio to find out how to live your life uninterrupted.
You came across someone struggling with hunger. How would you recognize them? Would you notice an 8-year-old girl who's not excited for summer break
because she may not be having lunch again until September?
Or a war veteran who's having a hard time
landing a job and getting back on his feet?
I am the 1 in 8 Americans who struggle with hunger. I am hunger in America.
Hunger can be hard to recognize. Learn why at IamHungerInAmerica.org. Brought to you by Feeding America and the Ad Council.
Welcome back. This is Sadhvi Bhagawati Saraswati with Inspiration and Transformation. How can I be like Hanuman? Perfect question to begin tonight. So, as I shared in the Aarti, Hanumanji is this incredible embodiment of the power of devotion, of this power of surrender. All of these feats he did, these miracles he did, I take God's name and it happens. It happens. And it's not false humility. It's not saying, God just made it happen. It's really, that is his experience. He's just a divine channel through which that power flows. He also is a beautiful embodiment of, we talk in here a lot about sort of the different levels of existence that exist simultaneously. And we may talk about, sometimes people will use words like higher and lower, but I try to avoid that because they're all beautiful levels. And levels of the physical body, this human incarnation, the current intersection of time and space in which we have a body and we have a role and a story. And there's something beautiful in that. It's the space in which our Dharma gets unfolded. And then, of course, there's the level of just oneness with God. And Hanumanji says so beautifully when Bhagwan Ram asks him, "Who are you?" In essence, he says, when I forget the truth of who I am, the highest truth of who I am, when I forget that, I am your das, I am your servant, I serve you, I love you. Not that there's anything wrong with that. Not when I'm an awful, horrible person. Not when I'm a failure spiritually. Because a lot of us, when we are in that experience of being in the body, in the humanity, mired in our humanity, there's a bit of guilt and shame that goes along with it when we're on a spiritual path of, oh my God, I lost it, I forgot. And Hanumanji, it's so beautiful, when I forget who I am. I'm your servant. I'm your das. And that's beautiful. It's an exquisite relationship. So it's not that I forgot myself and therefore I am a spiritual failure. But just in those moments that I consciously, unconsciously, purposely, by accident, forget who I am. Because we spoke a few nights ago about the bhakti tradition and how in the bhakti tradition we consciously, willingly forget that we are one with God so that we can worship God. Because being in love feels so beautiful. So whether it's a conscious forgetting, a purposeful forgetting, or an unconscious, accidental forgetting, either way, when I forget the core truth of who I am your das, your servant, your devotee, I love you. And when I remember who I am, then I am you, one with you. And it's this beautiful teaching of these different levels, neither being wrong or right, but there obviously being a higher eternal truth in our oneness with God than in our physical form. And yet they both exist, and they both exist simultaneously. And as long as we hold it with tenderness and devotion and we don't get stuck in the meanness of it. Because even in Hanumanji's meanness, like I'm separate from you, I'm still devoted to you. It's not meanness, aren't I so great? Did you see what I did? I should get, a gold star and I should be appointed the, something major of Ayodhya when you go back, like because of me, it all happened. You better make me, you're second in line. Nothing like that. Even when I forget myself, I am devoted to you. Even when I'm mired in my humanity, I'm devoted to you. And so it shows us how even when we are not remembering that we are one with God, that it's not all hope is lost. It's not we're a failure. We can use that time, again, either purposely or when it happens not on purpose, when we're unable to access that experience of oneness, to use that as a time to just say, all right, how beautiful. This is the time for me to practice my devotion. Not able to feel one with God? Okay. This is a season of bhakti then. Season of devotion. And isn't that beautiful? It's also a path. It's its own path to liberation, its own path to moksha. It's not a lower path. It's just a different path. And then when we have those moments, those experiences, those seasons, those remembrances of being one with God, well, then we know I am you. And then the lover and the beloved become one. But we're able to taste that experience of the divine in either and both. So it's sort of something for everyone, path of devotion, not you have to be like this and then. Even if when you're in the time of forgetting who you are, no problem. Be like me, be devoted. And he shows us the way. And I mean, there's so many stories, but my other favorite story that I love is the story of him with the pearl necklace. Because a lot of us start to value valuables. And we've been kind of brainwashed to think about the value of something as in how much it would catch on the market. How much did you pay? How much could you sell it for? That becomes the value of something. And of course, acquire a lot of things, accumulate a lot of expensive things, and discover how miserable you still are. And you realize, there actually isn't much value in any of that at all. For anything that I really want, for that which I'm really looking for. All these valuables filling up my shelves, filling up my house, filling up my room. And I still can't sleep. I'm still depressed. So where's the value in the valuables? And Hanumanji gives it in such a beautiful way. After the war, Sita Ma gifts him this beautiful pearl necklace. She says, like a mother to the child, she says, but now be careful, Hanuman. This is a very precious necklace. Take good care of it. It's like when your mom decides you're old enough to have something nice. And she says, now here it is, but don't leave it in the gym at school. Put it away in your locker. Take care of it. Don't lose it. So she says, take care of it. This is very precious. And so Hanumanji takes that necklace and he starts to look at each individual pearl, and he looks at it this way, and then he looks at it this way, and he looks at it this way, and he then puts it in his mouth and he bites it in half and again looks and then spits it out. And then he goes to the next one, and again he examines it from every angle, bites it in half, examines it, spits it out. One by one, he's doing this, and finally, Sita Ma can't take it anymore. And she says, Hanuman, what are you doing? I just told you this was a very precious necklace. You're biting them in half. You're spitting them out. Don't you know how to take care of valuables? Essentially. And he says, because of course he knows what's really valuable, and he says, Sita Ma, you said this is precious. If it's precious, that means my Ram is here. That means God is in these. So I'm looking for Ram in the pearls, and in the ones where I don't see him, well, I figure those must be the ones that are not so precious, so I'm spitting them out, and I'm waiting to find the one that's really precious, that has my Ram in it. And it's such a beautiful reminder that essentially wherever God is, that's heaven. That's value. And it can happen in a super big mansion, and it can happen in a hut. Totally irrelevant. Has nothing to do with what the walls are made of. Lanka was a city made of gold, and essentially it was hell. It was led and headed by and terrorized by Ravan. Dwarka is a city made of gold. Heaven. Headed by Bhagavan Krishna. So it wasn't the gold that's the problem or the key. It has to do with who's in charge. So that's the teaching is in our lives. It's not that pearls keep God away. You can have pearls, no problem with that. You can have a city made of gold, no problem. Just make sure it's Dwarka, not Lanka. Just make sure that the head of your city of the self is the divine and not the demon. And so it's not in the things. It's in the presence of God. Wherever God is, if we said for a moment there was no option of Dwarka, Dwarka was of another yuga, gone. Okay, so our option is city made of gold, Lanka, or a hut in the woods with Ram. Where would you rather be? Right? So it's all about where God is. Where we experience, and of course God is everywhere, but where we experience the presence of God. That's heaven. And so it's just such a beautiful message for our lives of don't focus on the external trappings. If they're there, fine. They're not there, fine. Focus on the presence of God. Because wherever that presence of God is, that's where everything is. So it's a little bit of how to be like Hanuman, but I think just singing the Hanuman Chalisa and praying to him for the Shakti of Bhakti, the power of devotion, the power to be devoted. Is such an incredible power to just learn how to offer yourself. Not like, oh my God, this is what I'm stuck with, or this is what I have to do in my tapasya because I want to be enlightened and so I've got to, be devoted first. But the joy of devotion. Hanumanji he's not just a macho hero, but he's a joyful being. Shares joy, spreads joy, gives. He's an embodiment of this love of devotion, of being devoted. Like what else? He's just waiting. Please give me something to do. Please tell me something, some way I can be of service. Just keep me near you. And so it reignites in us that power of just being devoted. And again, it doesn't matter what form of God or with form or without form. It doesn't matter what your religion is or how you connect with the divine. Could be devoted to Mother Nature. Could be devoted to the supreme source of energy and spirit in the universe. Doesn't matter. But just recognizing that love is the greatest power we have. And when it's love for God, it's the power beyond powers. And then everything becomes not only possible, but happening.
The future of Internet radio is here. Om Times Radio. IOM FM.
Ascending Hearts is no ordinary dating site, but a spiritual dating site with a purpose, to link you with your soulmate. We engineer the serendipity so you can trust that you will attune with someone that has the same matching vibration as you. Ascending Hearts, the conscious dating site for the spiritually aware. Try Ascending Hearts for free. AscendingHearts.com.
This is Kathy Beal, host of Celestial Compass, featuring astrology you can use. Celestial Compass points you to what's going on in the sky and what you can do with it down here on Earth. We also explore fun, effective, and cosmic tools for navigating this adventure we call life. Join me the first and third Monday of the month at 5 p.m. Eastern Time for Celestial Compass. It's enlightening, entertaining, and empowering.
Every 2 minutes, an American is sexually assaulted. The majority of victims know their attacker. It could be your friend, your neighbor, or someone you met at a party. If you said no, it's rape, and it's a crime. This is Christina Ricci with RAIN. Call the National Sexual Assault Hotline today at 1-800-656-HOPE or visit rain.org. That's RAINN.org.
Brought to you by RAIN and this station.
Welcome back. This is Sadhvi Bhagawati Saraswati with inspiration and transformation. Unconditional love. Yeah, it's hard when the ego gets hurt. That's the challenge. It is, as you've said, so much easier to feel it. For the creation, for other aspects in that creation, for those who are just that you see on the pathway, who you pass by, it's much easier to feel that for them than for those who are close, from whom you want something and you're not getting it. That's the challenge. Because see, trees and flowers and blades of grass and random people you're walking with, they're not challenging my ego. There's nothing I'm wanting of them that they're not giving me. And so it's very easy to feel that love for them. But for a loved one, family members, partner, we've got agendas, we've got expectations, how they should be, how they should act, how they should treat us. And so that unconditional love is much harder, absolutely. But that's where it's the opportunity to actually ask yourself, can you distinguish ego from soul? Yeah, the ego is injured, but can the soul still be connected to their soul? Can you distinguish ego from heart? Ego is hurt. Heart can still love. And that's a critical thing for actually deep happiness in your life. Because our egos get injured a lot. It's just part of the package deal of being human. People are going to do things, they're going to say things, they're going to act in ways that are not what we want. They're going to comment on something on social media. They're going to post something on social media. I mean, it happens now all the time. And if every time something like that happens, we lose our ability to access love, then we're really damaging ourselves. And so it's a really critical and powerful practice to make sure that you can distinguish a damaged ego from a deeply loving heart. A damaged ego from a soul-to-soul connection. And that's your practice. So whenever you find yourself, and by ego, by the way, I don't just mean your arrogance. The ego is the whole sense of who we think we are, that whole identity. It's the part of us that gets hurt, that feels insulted. So ask yourself whenever you have those moments when it's hard to love, see whether you can drop deeply. The upset is here. It's in the stories that the mind is telling you about, oh my God, I can't believe it, and how dare he, and how dare she, and that was so mean. And see if you can just drop deeper. Drop into your heart. Can you still feel the love? And then drop even deeper. Drop into soul. Drop into spirit. Drop into consciousness. It's a very powerful meditative practice. It's great for your relationships. And it's great for your own self-awareness. And that's why, one of the beautiful teachings that Puja Swamiji always gives is about the importance of having a breathing room, a spiritual corner that we go to. So if you've got a fight going on, or there's something, a situation, that you can actually remove yourself from it temporarily. To go and sit somewhere where you can actually re-anchor yourself. Because if you don't have that, then you're in that fight of mind to mind, injured ego to injured ego. And you end up saying things that you later really regret and losing yourself completely. And being able to just go to your breathing room, go to your sacred space, enables you to drop deeper. So create that. It may be just a corner of a room. But create a space that you can go to reconnect. This brings to a close this hour of inspiration and transformation. Thank you so much for joining me. I'm so glad to be together with you all each week. And I look forward to being together again next Thursday, same time, on Om Times Radio.